For this session today, for this morning, the session is on National Digital Identity, a Singaporean journey. I'd like to please welcome Mr. Mark Tam, the Managing Director, Health and Public Services Lead, Southeast Asia Accenture Private Limited. Thank you, Mark.
Good morning. Can I invite my fellow panelists to come on stage? Come on in. Yep. Give them a warm round of applause. Okay, we can take it there. Okay. Okay, so probably we still have people coming in. Okay, we can get started. So maybe for a start, I will just do a round of introductions. And maybe the best way is for you all to introduce yourself. Why don't you do that? Starting with you, Chun Wei.
Okay, sure. So, morning everyone. Welcome to the AWS Summit. In person. It's really been a while such things happen. So my name is Chun Wei. I look after the team of solution architects for public sector here in ASEAN. Essentially, as solution architects, our role is to understand our customers' business and technology priorities, and then partner, support them, in developing solution architectures to solve their problems.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Good morning. My name is Mui Kim. I'm the CEO of Assurity Trusted Solutions. Probably you haven't heard of it. Actually, we are the wholly owned subsidiaries of GovTech. And what we do, actually, two things relevant today. One of which is that we are the National Certification Authority of Singapore. My mic. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Sorry, do I have to repeat?
No, it's okay. Let's continue.
Yeah. So the National Certification Authority of Singapore. So basically, what we do is we issue digital certs to individuals like you and me. Okay? And the other part is that we are the go-to-market partner for NDI for the private sector.
Okay, my name is Kevin Koh. I'm Managing Director with Accenture. I'm lead the technology services part of Health and Public Service across Southeast Asia. My role in the NDI program, I've been with the program for the last 8 years, working hand in hand with GovTech and the government, right, in rolling out and implementing NDI.
Okay, so maybe a question for the audience to warm up. What is one thing in common with the panelists here that you see on stage? It's related to the theme of this session. Anyone? SingPass. Of course, it's SingPass related. What else? So this is basically a team of like-minded Singaporean leaders that has really journeyed together over the last decade in collaborating and creating what seemed at that point in time a vision very far. But today, when we look back where we are in terms of national digital identity, that is something that we are very proud of. And I think this session is to really peel more, to really have that conversation. Now, if you take a look at NDI by the numbers, right? We call it NDI in short, right? There's SingPass, there's CorpPass, there's MyInfo, and I believe many of us here in this room are actually users of this. But do you know that actually a big part of NDI now is actually on the cloud? Of course, we are in the AWS Public Sector Summit. We can't be not talking about cloud, right? And Chun Wei will be more than eager to talk about that. But I think NDI was born as a result of citizens' expectations of government digital services. And it's really today a cornerstone of what we see as digital government and digital economy. And let's begin with a video.
Even better.
Even faster.
Even safer.
Even easier.
What I like about the SingPass mobile application is that everything is just all in one app. Things like your driver's license, your passport information. Anytime you need to know the numbers for anything, you can just pull up the app.
It has improved tremendously. They have actually listened to people like us. Now it is much simpler. It is one of the main apps that I probably will use. I don't even have to carry my IC now. You lost your IC, is $300 replacement. You don't carry, you don't lose. I can simply just give it the barcode for them to scan, especially polyclinic.
所以我一扫描我的脸，哇，就登录了，我就不用去记住这个密码，所以方便了很多。还可以看到其他的资料，比如说我的公积金有多少钱在里面啊，我不要去登录公积金的网站，也很方便了。那么你就不用整天靠着家人哦，等你家人呢，你孩子回来才帮你。
So as a platform for saving and investing, we are subject to the highest standards of KYC and AML in our processes. For any business, especially small businesses, often this is associated with a very high operational cost, which goes into manually verifying a lot of identification documents provided by clients. So I would say that with MyInfo, it's become a much easier and more seamless process, not only to verify documents, but also to make the customer experience a more positive one, whereby clients can just input their information and provide it to Scythe at the click of a button.
So Real Hope's mission and purpose really is to be the connector for donors, to give hope to those who fall through the cracks, to marginalized communities. Our job is to make sure that the campaign is verified and the story is real, to make sure that your dollar goes specifically to beneficiaries who need it. So we have to collect documents from the beneficiary, ask them for their CPF statements. If they say they have 3 kids, we have to ask them for their birth certificates, for example. And from the beneficiary point of view, it's also not very dignified. I'm here, I'm asking for help, but why are you asking me for all these things? Like, I'm not lying to you. Thanks to SingPass, we can use SingPass MyInfo as a way to verify our beneficiaries. Right? Use the camera to scan. Yeah, like going to shopping mall like that, right?
Thank you so much.
No
it's easy for me.
It's quicker, it's faster, it's easier. So that has really helped. It does a building a relationship with the beneficiary.
The tech hacky sessions are such that ordinary people are invited to give feedback. What were some of the hang-ups? What some of the problem areas were? It's definitely collaborative. I mean, to see your changes implemented, each iteration gets better and better, faster. It's amazing, actually.
When you are not blind, you use a handphone by looking at it, touch where you want. That's very easy to use. But I rely more on hearing what it says as compared to what I can see.
SingPass Mobile. Scan QR code which CPFE services. Processing.
What is important to people like us is labeling. All the buttons, all the functions must be able to be compatible with the compact software. The SingPass team have taken many of the considerations that people like us face. They have created mock-ups, they have created apps for us to try out. What we really require is empathy and not sympathy.
I would definitely recommend SingPass to other businesses and organizations. It's a win-win for both sides.
It's good, it's easy to use, and it liberates everybody from those things that they couldn't do before.
In the future, I'm hoping that there will be more services that are integrated with the SingPass mobile app, so it becomes even easier, and then you won't need even all these other apps. You could just do everything through one app.
Okay, so that's an introduction to SingPass. And maybe our first question to the panel is, what are your reactions, looking at the videos, along your own contributions, thoughts in the last decade of morphing NDI to where it is today? Maybe Chun Wei.
Well, it's always amazing when, when looking at a video, right, when you have technology put together, but actually that's not what people see, right? The interface is extremely intuitive and simple, but there's actually lots of technology behind it. It's really been a journey, like Mark said, and it's really been a team sport, right? Lots of people have been involved. I remember the conversations when, the initial conversations of, moving SingPass to the cloud, and those were early days of cloud adoption, right? And really kudos to the project team, from GovTech, from Accenture, Surety, to have that vision to really re-architect the application, leveraging on all the feature functions that the cloud can bring, right? Today it runs on 3 availability zones in Singapore, offering, the high level of resilience. From a security angle, I think, there was challenge. The whole security paradigm, right, was rethought, right? How do you have not just equal security of on-premise systems, but even better, right? So new concepts like zero trust frameworks, never trust, always verify, ensuring every API call is indeed authenticated, to make sure it has the level of security that's required, right? So, and from an SA angle, that's close to my heart, right? My SAs were working very closely with the team. Very privileged to have that partnership using tools like the AWS well-architected framework, right, which provides a consistent approach, right, for the teams to assess the architectures that was being designed, to meet the various pillars of security, cost efficiency, performance excellence, just to name a few, right?
Thank you, Chun. Kim, I know surety at this juncture, a lot of it is still on-prem, but certainly your own reflections and journey alongside, the video and the emotions, yeah.
Okay, maybe I will have to stay even before my current job.
Yes.
So I used to be a CIO of a public agency, so Ministry of Manpower. So when we started our digital transformation journey 10 years ago, so one of the earlier digital services transformation that we did was really to include MyInfo, SingPass MyInfo, as part of our new digital service, the foreign domestic workers digital services. And in fact, actually, it indeed helped us to achieve that seamless experience for the users who wanting to use. And we're able to really realize our vision for the transformation. So that's my contribution then. So in my current job as a CEO of Surety, we have two primary role in there, one of which is that, as I mentioned, we are the national CA. So just like, for example, ICA, right? You all know ICA issue you a pink IC or the blue IC. So we are the one that issue digital certificate in your digital realm, okay? So as an individual, you have a cert, but you probably don't realize it. If you pull out your SingPass mobile app in the personal profile, there are two certificates in there, one of which is to authenticate you in the online services. The other one is the signing cert. So in the past, you probably see your parents maybe using those ink pad with the company sign, chop the blue pad and chop and sign, right? So in a way, we replace that. We have a signing cert for you to sign digitally with whichever services that you might use. So this is one part of it. I think the other aspect that is more important that the SingPass infrastructure has been heavily invested by government to allow the public agency to deliver the public service. But we have decided, or rather the government decided to open up to let the private to use. So private sector company, businesses today could use the services in SingPass to deliver their own customer service, their digital services seamlessly. So our job in Surety is to bridge that, the public sector, private sector partnership. So we are the one actually who help the private sector to onboard and ensure customer success from the beginning of onboarding to eventually scaling the use cases for their businesses. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim. And Kevin, being the program director since 2013 until now, your own reflections.
Yeah, so when I look back at the journey of SingPass, I see that truly it is a journey of innovation. I don't think we ever stop, right, pushing the boundaries of what could be possible with just a simple thing like a digital identity, right? But I think we anchored around basically three key principles that that sort of help us guide in terms of how we want to innovate and how we want to push the boundaries and how we want to make sure that it benefits both citizens and businesses, right? I think the first is around usability, ease of use, convenience, right? I think as you see, we have been looking at, and in the past we have been looking at passwords, which was very difficult for many people, and today still, even I struggle with passwords, right? And the question is, how do we make it easier for people to interact and use their digital identity, right? And of course now, we have the QR code, and that enables a lot of very seamless journeys, user journeys in a digital realm, right? I think the second one is around resiliency and security. I think that's important because people want to have a digital identity that they can trust, they know that it can scale, that is responsive, it is a trusted identity, and that's really key, and that's the cornerstone of what SingPass is, right? And the third is around pervasive adoption. You can have something that's easy to use and well trusted, but if there's no services to use it against, I think that's going to be a very challenging digital identity. And that's why, with Assurity, in there, SingPass has been extended not just for government digital services, but also within the private sector. And we can see how it benefits citizens' experiences in the digital realm. Obviously, it has been accelerated during the pandemic, and we have pivoted many times, right, to different use cases. Like, in the days of the pandemic, you would have known that we use it for safe entry, and now you can open a bank account with SingPass. You can register for your driving license and so on, right? And even your birth cert and many digital services have been brought to life as a result of the digital ID that's in SingPass. So really very glad to be part and privileged, right, to be part of this journey where we are continuing every day to push the boundaries of what could be possible. And with the technology that's evolving very quickly, that's all enabled in a way by the cloud, right? Evolving very fast with new services coming on board. And imagining new services, I believe that we will continue to bring and elevate, right, how a digital identity can be used in the digital world.
Thank you. I think personally, my own reflections is that it has been a journey of relentlessly trying to improve the citizens' experience transacting, right, with government and now even private organizations. I think that's clearly one aspect. And when I look at the video, the part that touches me most is the relevance of what we built. For example, in SingPass Mobile, right, the ability to do speech to text, text to speech, dark mode, multilingual. These are all with the view of inclusiveness, right? And that's something that we can really, be proud of. Those are my own reflections. Now, back to the summit and to the cloud, which is what Chun-Wei is very eager to talk about. All right, why is cloud an important aspect of NDI? Now, you touched a bit on that, and Kevin spoke a bit about that as well, but I think it's good for the audience to really appreciate the importance of cloud and the benefits that it really brings. Is it a hype, a myth, or it's true and it's being felt? So, Chun-Wei.
Well, thanks for that, Mark. Great question. I think the way I think of it is there's two parts to it, right? The four main reasons, there are many reasons companies move to the cloud, but you can kind of summarize them around four, right? The first is really about agility, right? Can you all hear me? Yeah. So the first is about agility, right? Which is, the ability to innovate quickly, and frequently, as Kevin has touched on. AWS today offers over 200 services on the platform. Customers tell us they choose AWS because it has that large suite of services, right? To pretty much for them to develop and create whatever they can imagine. The second reason is cost efficient, right? It's pay as you go. You spin up an EC2 instance, you shut it down, it's per second billing, right? How much faster can you get for that? The third one is around security. There's a quote from a director from CIA in one of the videos where he said, the cloud on the best day, the security of the cloud on its weakest day is stronger than any client's server application you can build. And one of the unique, maybe not so known features about AWS security is Nitro systems. And that's the underlying technology that AWS hypervisors run on. It is designed by AWS. It's a hardware-based approach to running the hypervisors. The main benefit of that is that it not only increases the efficiency of your compute, but it actually renders certain class of security attacks, right? Side channel attacks at hypervisors, or that it's invulnerable from that, right? Versus software-based ones. So that's one. The next one is, the last two are around, reliability and resiliency. The AWS has taken a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? I mean, those of us who build systems, we will design HA and then we design DR. We know how painful it is to design DR, especially it's hot, hot DR across sites. You can do that, easily, designing your architectures, on multiple availability zones. You spin up an RDS instance with a click of a button, you can get multiple copies, that gives you the same effect, right, as having a hot DR, right, and at not seemingly, not significantly, additional cost, right. So that's one part, right. So these are, I think, the enablers. So what do these enablers do? I think they contribute to what I think a flywheel effect, right? NDI when it started was really providing a very core service of identification. By taking away a lot of the heavy lifting, that I think allows the project teams to focus on new features, new functions to be bolted on, right? And running on a reliable and secure platform, that means the other participants in the network will want to use this reliable, trusted service, because it becomes a system that's 24/7, right? Not something that every Friday night it needs to go down for maintenance, right? So that which is I think important for private sector agencies to use. Then that frees up project team to have bandwidth to develop new use cases, and then as these new use cases come in, new applications from the project team and externally come in as well, and that creates a positive flywheel effect, right? And then as more people kind of get on board, and it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling kind of capability, right? So that's the way I kind of see the benefits of systems running in the cloud.
Thank you. Kim, your view, observing, making decisions around, okay, should I go to the cloud or not for my surety, products? What are your own perspectives about cloud and the NDI journey?
Okay, I think in year 2020, that's when we actually implemented the national CA system. So shortly after that, the pandemic and the opening out after the lockdown. So our system were able to scale up according, that time the SingPass safe entry usage went up to the roof, right, in a sense, over weeks. So we are able to do that. But as I mentioned, that we are actually in a very close partnership with the private sector to help and promote the use and help them to onboard to SingPass. As we see that the private sector transaction, unlike the government public service, the businesses are more dynamic, I would say. The volume is and the type of business is a lot more varied and dynamic. So we see that having a part of our workload into cloud is something that we can't actually do without. Okay, so I think it's something that we have to do, and I think it really will allow us to scale with agility. In time to come, hopefully we could even go overseas, interoperate with other regions, and I think the cloud strategy definitely will be something that we are working on.
Thank you. And Kev, I think the resilience is a really key part, because I can almost imagine keeping it 24/7 uptime. Those of us who are in this industry knows that that's mission critical when we do national systems, right? And that's the passion that a lot of Singaporeans here, really care about, and make sure that we do all it takes. So I believe that one of the key part to resilience was really going to the cloud. Can you elaborate on that, and what's your view?
Yeah, I think one of the things we were thinking about when we go to cloud is really about how can we make it resilient, right? And we talk about resilient, and because that's the cornerstone of a digital identity like SingPass, right? Because the cornerstone means that, and really it's because of citizen expectations today, right? When you look, when a lot of us are digital natives, and even our children, they all grow up in the internet world, right? They expect everything to be always on. They expect Facebook will never go down, Google as well, right? They expect instant, quick response time, that things are always available. The citizen expectation has definitely risen a lot, and therefore, in response to that, I think governments and public sector, right, has always it has to be a shift of mindset, right? From taking it as a project, but looking at it from a product mindset, and looking at it from a living product, right? And how that product can scale in terms of not just features, but also in terms of volumes, right? So the use cases keep expanding, but at the same time, as we roll out use cases, how do we make sure that the service is always up and running? and that is always resilient, right? And part of the equation is really going to the cloud, right? And the cloud enables the resiliency, but that seamless integration and failover to different availability zones, right? And I think in the past when we were on-prem world, we have a DR website and we have a DR site, and it will take time even for us to fail over to one. But today is it's always active with the availability zones available. We have no fear of that. The system would go down because of either hardware failures or because of the data center availabilities, and these are things that will keep the resiliency up. And I've sort of seen it happen, right? Because when we were on-prem world, we had scheduled downtimes. It was inevitable, and now I don't think anyone noticed any downtime with SingPass at all, even if we had to do certain patches and so on, right? So I think that is a testament to how resilient it can be, right, for the cloud.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, switching gears a bit, let's watch another video.
The even better SingPass is here. Let's unlock whatever you need. This, that, at even greater speed. SingPass makes things short and sweet. Now, let's proceed. When life gets busy and there's too much on hand, let it all go. Even the pen. You're just a tap away from completing the task with a digital identity you can always trust. So chill, sit back. It'll all get done. Faster, easier, safer. It might even be fun. So put your best face forward and things will click in place. Download the even better SingPass now and live confidently today.
Okay, so if I were to ask the panel, what is one future idea of NDI? And maybe this time we start with Kim.
Okay, I think I have two ideas. Okay, one of which is that today our certs actually we issue only to individuals like you and me, right? So the other idea is definitely to extend it to the corporate identity. So so that's one part of it. Then the other part is my personal wish is that as Singapore so small, right? So definitely for our businesses to be successful, going overseas is definitely one of their growth strategy. So for us, for me, having an interoperate with other countries, whether it's a CA system or other ecosystem, will be critical for our businesses to remain relevant in this world, and also for individual like us when we travel overseas. So how nice if you can use SingPass in all the country that you visit, right? So that's my personal wish.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, so I actually have two areas that I was thinking of. Right? I mean, as Kim speaking, one is I think SingPass is quite well known within Singapore, and we use it for many use cases. It's almost like the digital. Well, it is the digital form of our NRIC, right? Which we actually use for a lot of use cases in Singapore. We enjoy using it, for digital services when we interact with the government, and we enjoy using it, for with trusted services in the private sector as well. But I think the question comes about is, okay, when we look at the next leap and the future, my wish is, right, in the end, can we use it, right, cross borders, beyond the borders of Singapore, right? When you go to another country and you need to open a bank account or get rent a car, for example, when I travel overseas. You typically use an identity. They will ask you for proof of identity, right? And what do you use? You actually use your passport, right? I think there's still a physical form of that digital identity, and the question, that we'll have is whether we could use a digital identity for that purpose, and how can we use it to expand beyond the borders of Singapore, and therefore be useful to facilitate trade, like what Kim said, right? But also for individuals to travel and transact and to be able to and do that, right? I mean, today if you look at a Facebook ID or Apple ID or Google ID, there's no borders around it, right? That you can use it across many countries with for many services And the question for us is whether SingPass can enable that services as we travel, as people trade, as we transact digitally. Because truly the internet is really a global marketplace, and therefore we need a digital, trusted digital identity to facilitate that, right? So that's one. I think the second area is something that is still very early stages, evolving, and everybody is talking or have different views about how it's going to be evolving into, right? And that's the metaverse, right? And everybody has different ideas, but if you think about it, metaverse, I mean, you think about the web, maybe 20 years ago, it was the primordial soup of evolution, and everybody was wondering what is internet about, right? And there was the wild, wild west, and we are figuring out how to use the internet, what do we use it for, search information or digital services, or what do we use it for, right? And today it's sort of same with the metaverse, because people don't know what it is, and we also not sure what use cases to use, right, in the metaverse. But it's evolving, it's maturing over time. Use cases are being onboarded day to day, and the question is, then it is a wild, wild west. There's standards that are yet to be defined, use cases are yet to be developed, and as we enter into that world, there is a need for trusted digital identity, because the day will come when people will have to transact with the government in the metaverse, or even with each other, or with businesses, right? And the question is whether we can be a step ahead to think about how a digital identity would enable the ecosystem that's going to be built around that, right? Because we're still in very early days, but that's where we can think about the future. And really, I think there's a need, because with the data, with the avatars in the metaverse, with the type of evolution that's happening, and there will be a need for a trusted place, for trusted identity, right, to be able to make that come to reality for many, for people, but also for businesses and for governments to adopt and to really innovate upon, right? So I think that's
okay.
Yeah.
And one idea, or future idea of NDI.
Yeah, I think the challenge about going last is all the good ideas have been taken up. I was driving down, from Suntec yesterday back to office, and I passed by High Street, and I saw this huge advertisement of a financial institution, and what was written there was actually, now you can use SingPass to apply for something. So to me it was like, wow, companies are actually using SingPass as a means to differentiate their services amongst their competitors. So I thought, wow, that's really remarkable. And going back to the flywheel example that I gave, I think that's certainly taking place already in Singapore, right? So from an idea perspective, I think, I think Wei King and Kevin has touched on it. I think the next thing big is really about how do we kind of enable this in a more cross-border setting, right? As businesses reinvent themselves in a digitalized world and so on and so forth. Singapore has traditionally always been a hub, right, in the physical world. So, how can NDI be a cornerstone of that? It doesn't mean exporting the same technology or whatever, but interoperability and whichever, but the same idea of providing that level of trust, assurance, reliability, right, in that cross-border transactions, right, and that will really kind of continue to put Singapore on on the map.
All right. Now, because we started this slightly late, and I was told that we have to end on time, right? Because you have a lot of interesting programs coming up. I thought it's good to end off with a reflection, right? Why did we even embark on the National Digital Identity? Right, it was a challenge set by PM Lee many years ago and said, we need a good digital identification service which is reliable, which everybody can rely on, such that I can sign, I can identify myself, I can access services securely, and I can transact services online. The Estonians have it. There's no reason why I, as a Singaporean, should not have it. So today we sit here looking back and said, what's the report card? Do you think we have met the challenge set by PM Lee? Dangerous question, but let me ask nonetheless, right? So, Kevin.
Yeah, I think it sets a very high bar for us in terms of having a digital identity that can really be impactful in the economy, both to citizens and the economy, right? And I think to a certain extent, the journey that we went through, right, sort of taught us how to be able to push the boundaries in terms of how we can use the digital identity to benefit the nation, right? I mean, it's all in the umbrella of the Smart Nation vision, right? But this is one of the anchor points where we can truly be proud of, right, in terms of how we can enable the other digital services, right, and really help the economy to flourish. And in a way, it sort of accelerated in the last 3 years when we had the pandemic, right? And I think one of the lessons I've learned, right, at least in this journey, is that it helps us, embrace the fear of failure, right, or embrace failure, right? I think that's something I feel is important as we journey to the cloud, right? Why I say this, because we often hear stories of success. We never hear the stories of failures, right? But behind every success, there are 1,000 failures. I think we all know that, right? I think when we talk about Thomas Edison, he invented a light bulb. He broke 1,000 light bulbs before he invented the one light bulb that got it, right? And I think in the modern day history, I think you would think that, like a game like Angry Birds became very popular. Somebody had a bright idea and all that. But actually, many of us didn't know that there were 51 games before they hit a success for Angry Birds as a successful game, right? So, we don't really talk about the failures, but when we hear somebody successful, we really celebrate it, right? But I think the cloud sort of enable us to think about failure in a different way, because you want to be able to fail and fail fast, right? And these are micro failures where you can try, and you can try certain technologies. You do not, because there's no, you might fail, but it's a micro failure, right? And therefore, I think having the public sector embrace this is a very big cultural shift for both us as well as the public sector, right? Because I think at the end of the day, if you really want to innovate, we want to try, and sort of cloud enables that, right? To really try something. Oh, if it doesn't work, it's okay. That's fine. Just shut it down, right? Okay. And we just the last few days or last week we heard one of the bigger failures in the reporter was Google Stadia, right? They tried it for 3 years as a online gaming service that Google launched 3 years ago, and they are shutting it down, right? So and Google is still a successful company, and therefore we shouldn't fear failing, but to try and innovate and really push that to a successful outcome. Yeah.
Okay, quickly, Wikim.
Yeah. In our conversation with many of the countries, including developed country, in fact, actually like Denmark, Belgium, UK, US, and Australia, and many more, one of which actually came out quite clear to us is that many of the countries that we spoke with, they are envious of us. Envious of us having a very good, strong national digital infrastructure that the residents and the businesses can rely on. And I think one of the critical success factor you asked me probably is the notion of the trust. So the trust that the citizen trust that we can deliver, and the business trust that the service is good, that they can use it to enable their business. Okay, so this is one aspect I thought, yeah, certainly we have delivered, I think, whatever he has said that in terms of businesses, but I think we shouldn't think that we shouldn't settle for this. We should continue to make sure that we stay ahead of the game, okay? Which is important. The second part about, we do have a good, reliable product. So for the resident to continue to use, we need to ensure that we are able to keep ourselves abreast of the needs, to ensure that we are still relevant always, and hopefully continue to come in many decades. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I think we will skip Chun Wei because the time is up. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and please give us a round of applause to the panel. Thank you.
The time is up.
Mark, Chun Wei, Mui Kim, and Kevin for the insightful sessions. So as a reminder, I would like to have everyone please remind to submit your feedback through the app, right? And our next session will begin shortly as well. It's going to be Build Smart Government Solution with AWS. So please feel free to join us back in this room if you're interested in that topic. All right, see you later.